Welcome to the presentation of interracial relationship Camp Good, and we will be presenting our project which is based on the topic of interracial relation. Now we have the introduction by Jocelyn.
So now we will start with the research question that our group have been discussing, which is how are interracial relationships portrayed in historicals and modern movies over time. In this research project, we will be focusing on both modern and historical movies. We each have to watch 4 interracial movies and analyze the differences, similarities, patterns of each of the 4 movies. So the reason we chose this topic is because we want to address the issue of racism to modern societies. This racial issues is not just about discrimination or inequality. There are other forms of racism such as what can be found in interracial relationships. Even though this racial discrimination is not done intentionally, it can be found in everyday lives, and people seem to ignore it. So, by giving this presentation, we will hope to help overcome racism in future relationships. Another reason why we chose this topic is because we think that nowadays people care too much about race, and we would like to address that race should not matter to everyone. Being a certain race does not change the way you love a person, whether it's strong friendships or love. It should be done sincerely. Like the quote said, love is colorblind. You love who you love. Race does not determine who you love. On to the next one. Why is this topic sociologically important? First is because it breaks the stereotype. So we rarely see interracial couples today. And by breaking the stereotype, we might set a good example for society that dating outside of your race is not something to be laughed about. At the same time, we are also promoting anti-racism. The second one is to learn and accept different culture. It is important for us to be able to learn and accept other people's culture because not only do we get to experience new things, we are also being exposed to new ways of thinking, which is a good thing. It also helps us to learn new language. Like I said before, we are gaining new ideas and experience. And the last but not least, it overcomes ethnocentrism and racism, which sadly still exists in society.
In deciding that we would study interracial relationships, we chose to focus on movies because we thought this form of media would have the most information on our topic. We selected our movies just on the basis that there was an interracial relationship involved. However, we wanted to analyze the idea of interracial relationships over time, so we spaced our movies from 1961 to 2014. One interesting thing was that there were very few movies on interracial relationships during the 1980s, but I couldn't find any information with an explanation as to why. Most movies we focused on were about white and black couples, which was interesting because it leads to the question, is conflict between races reinforced because of these movies? We also looked at many other cultures in the other category of the pie chart. We looked at Latino people and white people, Asian people and white people, as well as some mixed races and white people. For the interracial relationships, we didn't focus too much on genders, but it seemed as if there was an equal split between black males versus white males and black women versus white women.
As far as how we collected our data, we created a research framework with questions that would answer our research topic. Then we recorded the data using the template as we watched the movies we chose to analyze. What we focused on specifically was on interracial relationships and how outside factors such as family, location, time period, social class, religion, and spirituality, and how they affected them, and how they were portrayed in the movies, both modern and historic. So the categories on our framework were: what are the races, ages, and social class of the main characters? What are the reasons for these characters to marry outside their race? Where and when is the movie set, city, and year? What is the reaction from both families from the two different races, initially and after meeting them? And what is the reaction of the outsiders to the couples? Are religion, spirituality, beliefs brought up in the movie? Does the couple experience prejudice or discrimination? How and from whom? What are other problems the couple experiences because of their race? And if the couples have children, describe them by age and gender, and how successful is the couple at the end of the movie. Are they still together and are they accepted by others? And also, we recorded other observations that we thought were relevant to answering the question. We created these questions because we felt they were vital to exactly how interracial relationships were being portrayed. Some difficulties we encountered when collecting our data was a majority of the movies focused more on the relationship between the two characters rather than the issue of race itself. And when it came to watching and analyzing the movies we selected, our framework research questions were not substantial enough to fully answer our question. The limitation in doing this kind of research is focusing on only one form of media, in this case movies. They do not accurately portray the real-life interracial relationships, and in every relationship is unique, and in our movies we found that they all either ended with a happy ending or tragically.
Pattern we found in some of the movies we watched was that the family of one of the people in the relationship did not approve of the interracial relationship and wanted them to be in a relationship with someone of their own race. One example of this happening is in the movie Double Happiness, where the main character, Jade, is pressured to go on dates with Chinese men by her father. When her father finds out she is dating a white man, he gets very angry and disowns her. Another pattern we noticed was in several of the movies we watched, there was a class gap between the people in the relationship, and that the man was often the one in the higher social class. Some examples of this in the movies we watched were Jade was of a lower social class and Mark was of a higher social class in the movie Double Happiness. Nicole was of a upper social class and Carlos was of a lower social class in the movie Crazy Beautiful. And Jay was of a higher social class and Nina was of a lower social class in the movie Bulworth. Another pattern we noticed was that in many of the relationships there is a significant age gap between the people in the relationship. For example, Jackie Brown from the movie Jackie Brown was 44, while the man she was with, Max, was in his 50s. In the movie Bulworth, Jay was 60, and the woman he was with was 26. Another pattern we noticed in a large portion of the movies we watched was that the movies would not focus on the interracial relationship, but instead on relationship drama that did not involve race, or other drama outside the relationship that didn't involve race. One reason this could be is that issues involving race tend to make people uncomfortable, so the movie producers maybe brushed over this to make the movie sell better, because people would enjoy it more.
Can you explain more about the sociological theory in terms of our class as well as the textbook? And the question from the yellow paper is how might your finding related to a sociological theory discussed in the class and textbook? Well, we focus on the chapter 7, which is race ethnicity, and chapter 11, which is about family. As far as I'm concerned, our main chapter is not it's about family, which is indicated in the canvas. But I found that something that really sensitive about the races and ethnicity issue. It happened in a lot of our movies, and the races and ethnic sociological theory. One of them is prejudice, and the theory of prejudice is fall into the two concepts, which is authoritarian personality and frustration. The difference between the prejudice and discrimination is the prejudice is an attitude, and discrimination is about behavior. And the authoritarian personality is developed in the childhood in response to the parents who practice hard discipline, and moreover, individuals with the authoritarian personality emphasize such a things as obedience to authority. I can give you an example about my movie Jumping the Bond. That a black woman, which is called Mrs. Weston, has an upper class sensibility that match her family. Martin Vineyard Estate, which is in a Kennedy compound, which is a lot of rich people who live in there in Massachusetts. And the second is a frustration, which is emphasize the very kinds of problem become frustrated individually. In this field, the individual who experience various kind of problems become frustrated and tend to blame their trouble in the groups that are often disliked in the real world. For example, like a racial and ethnic and religion minority often suffer this kind of issue. And I can give you an example about my movie, which is called Bailey. The title once complained about her identity with her uncle for being not having dinner with a white visitor back to the history of the uh, I guess it's the 17th century, right? And uh, and I will talk about discrimination in terms of the sociological theory. Uh, Discrimination refers to arbitrary denial of the rights and privilege and opportunity to member with this group, which is individual group as well as institutional group. And we are not focused on more individual group. We are focused on an institutional group, which is categorized in a three row here, which is healthcare and mortgage redlining and residential segregation. And I want to point out more about the hybrid segregation because two of my movie is actually more concerned with the hybrid segregation because I can give you an example of my movie which is Mr. and Mrs. Loving in 1996. There's actually hybrid segregation happening in this movie when the couple were forced to leave the state of Virginia after their marriage in a they was when they forced to leave the Virginia, they have to move to the downtown Washington D.C. and they were seeking apartment to live in a downtown D.C. but they are not allowed to live in D.C. because the couple is interracial marriage. One is black and one is white, and the landlord say it's restricted building. You are not allowed to live here. The landlord suggests this couple to live outtown the DC, and which is highly segregated from black people. And as we watching our movie, most of them our movies more concerned with modernism, interracial couple. But since we have a hard time to find a movie about more interracial couples, in terms of the sociological theory, and we most of that find something related with the family pattern in the USA today, and I want to point out the something related with marriage, defined as a household as being all the people who live together in a dwelling unit, whether or not they are related by blood, marriage, or adoption. About 11.7 million households exist in the US, and then 67 of household and 33% of the non-family household. So most of the non-family household consists of only one person. Half of a household involved a married couple, and half not involved a married couple. You see, this is very serious issue in modern society in United States today. A lot of step family issue in here, which is very different from my country, and also a lot of divorce rate. The change issue is also affecting the American family. I was actually watching my movie about the black and white. The little girl Alice living with her family, but she lost her mother and her grandmother. Uh, it's a story of a grandfather who is suddenly left to accrue for his beloved granddaughter Alice when her parental grandmother seek custody with the help of her brother. And the little girl is from between two families that love her deeply with the highest intention of the hearts. Both families fight for what they feel is right and soon forced to conform the two feeling about the race, forgiveness, and understanding. And the last topic that I really want to point out is anti-miscegenation. Which is about the movie of Mr. and Mr. Loving in 1996. This movie is very inspired me about the racial issue, which is in 1958. It's actually considered a very serious crime. It's major crime felony about the interracial marriage. And this this is actually have another coins involved in this movie about the other coin is invading to the statue by living in the state of Virginia. And I want to show you a slide which is a photo by the Entertainment Weekly. Here's a interracial marriage used to be a jailable offense in Virginia. And you can see the murdered Jetta Loving, who was black and Native American, and her white husband Richard was arrested in 1958, and the sentence a year in prison simply for being married. The sentence was suspended on the condition they lived the state of Virginia. And then the second one is ignored judge may have helped the Loving cases. And here shows something that really sensitive issues about the second part. And the third part is an interracial couple went truly free until 2000. So some of the state is banned the interracial marriage. So here show the 16 states, but not all of those states immediately comply. Alabama is a less holdout. Here shown in didn't repeal the anti-miscegenation law until 2000, just a decade ago. And the last part that I want to talk about is sadly the Loving story was cut short. This is really inspired. Just 8 years after the Supreme Court ruling, the Loving car was hit by the drunk driver. Richard was killed in an accident. So this story is talk about our main topic and major concern about the interracial marriage. Alright, this is all the part from Kenny. Thank you.
So the major differences that we have found in the overall movies we watch between modern movies and historical movies are: first, modern movies tend to have an unrealistic depiction of the couple. It also does not necessarily focus on the racial issues, which is the most important part of our research. And it usually ends with a happy ending for the couple. The happy ending and the live happily ever after make it seem less realistic. However, on the historical movies, they seem to focus and address more on the racial issues. And also the overall presentation of historical movies are more realistic, but the ending is almost always tragic. There are also similarities between these two movie themes. They both often include religion as a big issue in some movie. They either get too attached with religion or sometimes not at all. Another similarity is that some of these movies are often too romanticized that it is hard to focus on the racial issues. Because the movie portrays too much romance, they seem to ignore racial conflicts, making it hard to gather data. And the movie also a lot of times portray a really big age gap and social class between the couple. This happens in most movies that we watch. The age difference and social class idea makes it seem even more dramatic in the movie. Apart from that, we also have some additional questions that might be important regarding this topic. So a question that we might want to focus in the future regarding this topic is exclusionary racial preferences still considered racist? Everyone nowadays have their own ideal types. Some prefer to date a specific race and some outside their race. As a group, we would like to know if this is considered racist or just having a type or a specific preference. So this is the end of our presentation and thank you for your attention.